It's not just tariffs and Trudeau anymore. Donald Trump's dramatic foreign policy pivot is driving a wedge between the world's biggest superpower and its number one trading partner. As America shifts away from NATO and cozies up to Russia and China, the seismic rumbles are shaking the very foundation of US-Canada relations. That's tonight on Narativ Canada. Literally, the only man we're talking about on this subject is Dean Blundell, the host of the Dean Blundell Show and the founder of Crier.co. And coming up, we'll explain what this shift in alliances means for war, trade, and immigration. But Dean, let's face it, the real fight is really happening here on the ice, and it's all happening tomorrow night.
Yeah, it is in Boston. Happened in Montreal last week. We have the Four Nations Cup, which is a break from the NHL's All-Star festivities. Instead, Gary Bettman and the NHL decided it would be best to bring the four best hockey nations together and do a best-on-best tournament. And as we know, the heat between Canada and the United States, all-time high. I don't know if you remember the threats to annex Canada, but Canada didn't take too kindly to it. Is that
look, the tariffs, the Trudeau thing, and then the takeover thing. It's a little much going on, but it's true. It looked very violent on the ice there. That's a typical hockey game.
Dudes just beating the shit out of each other, best on best, which never happens. You would have expected these guys just to float around and score a couple goals and stay away from each other because they've got Stanley Cup dreams this year, right? And no, that started with 3 fights in the first 9 seconds, and I fucking loved every second of it. Anyway, Canada lost 3-1. Great game. America played a heavy game. Canada's goalie, Jordan Binnington, sucked, so we lost. But we won 2 out of the 3 fights. The third was a draw. And the final is in Boston. It's on Thursday, 8 p.m. There's more to this game than hockey, sir. There's more to this game than hockey.
It's going to be the most anticipated broadcast in terms of American-Canadian rivalry ever. This is the biggest there is in the history of the rivalry, which has been pretty big. It's a no-name kind of tournament.
It's Four Nations face-off. They've never done it before. And every year they're like, do we do another stupid all-star game? And they're like, let's do a best-on-best. We'll rotate it every year. And they mean it. Like, it's maybe one of the greatest stumbles the NHL's ever had, where they said, hey, listen, let's do something different. And this is taking the sports world by storm. You have so many hockey fans, non-hockey fans going, oh, my God, this is about nationalism. This is about pride. This is about Trump. This is about geopolitical bullshit, not just about hockey. And then you've got all the players going, hey, we dig it because it just adds to the actual vibe of what hockey should be, where you got 2 nations literally beating the shit out of each other. And then outside the hockey rink, you got 2 nations that literally want to beat the shit out of each other. After, of course, the ascension of Donald Trump to the presidency and him threatening to take over Canada. So we have a vested interest because obviously, we like our national security. We're very proud Canadians. Hockey's our game. We've won everything 20 times over. The United States is an upstart nation when it comes to hockey. All the NHL players, like 42% of the players in the NHL are Canadian. 7 of the last 8 captains that have won Stanley Cups, no matter where the team's from, are Canadian. So we're a really prideful nation. So there's a lot on the line on Thursday, Zev. Whoever wins this not only has bragging rights, but we get to go on Twitter and mock the fuck out of other people depending on who wins or who loses. And that's really the game, isn't it?
That is part of the game. Almost everything happens on Twitter, although there is actually like real geopolitics happening behind the scenes, which is changing the world, which is driving all of this. Let's face it, until last week, Canada and the United States were the greatest allies, the best friends, the most special of relationships. And now, as we look at Marco Rubio, Secretary of State of the United States, buddying it up with Lavrov in the least democratic place on earth, Riyadh, negotiating the future of the Ukrainian people, the United States is no longer part of the sphere that it used to be in. It's no longer a friend of Europe's and Britain and Canada and Australia. It's left the neighborhood and has joined the bad guys on the wrong side of the tracks.
Yeah, America's now the baddies. Yeah, you know what? I've never seen a heel turn like this. I'm 52, right? I really haven't. Like, 2-3 years ago, microphones during the American national anthem and Canadian hockey rinks during NHL games, if they broke, Canadians would help sing the American national anthem. It's our second anthem. And within the span of a month and a half, MAGA, Trump, have legitimately victimized every Democratic partner they've ever had and their biggest trading partner, and then basically said, we don't need anything from Canada. Canada sucks. We're just going to take it. It's going to be ours. You know, you and I have talked about it on several podcasts. And Canadians were like cautiously optimistic, but we got the net. After this whole thing started, you started hearing like an NHL Flames game. Flames, I believe no, it was Ottawa and Minnesota. Boos ringing out during the American national anthem. That was right after the tariff announcement. And then the annexation announcement, which happened shortly after that, all the way across Canadian NHL rinks every time an American team would come to town. That started this insane conversation that you have to have with people is, hey, are we booing athletes? Because we shouldn't. Of course, you shouldn't boo the athletes. But there's nuance here. No one's booing the athletes. We're booing Marco Rubio. We're booing MAGA. We're booing Elon Musk. We're booing Donald Trump. And we're literally booing the United States of America, but not the United States of America as a whole, not Americans. We're booing MAG Americans. And that's a difference with a
It's not the
distinction
people.
because we're proud of who
Yeah.
we are.
If the tariffs are going to hurt ordinary Americans, that's certainly not the plan behind what Canada's doing. It's to hurt the regime and to hurt their crazy policies and their crazy foreign policies. And no one's coming after Americans directly, although MAGA Americans are a legitimate target because this is their government.
Yeah. Oh, without question, not only a legitimate target. I had this conversation with a guy named Pete Dominic. He's a comedian, podcaster in the States. He's a pretty progressive dude, and he's just sick with what's going on. He asked me a question, what do you think of us now? And I'm like, dude, we love America, but this isn't America, right?
Mm.
We're not booing our notion of what America is. We're booing the geopolitical heel turn that your new president, that 71 million of you morons voted for, has made, not just with us, but with every other democratic country, not named Russia, not named China. It's one of those weird, because you grow up in the shadow of the United States, the security of the United States, being next to Big Brother, all that other stuff. And it shook me listening to people boo the anthem, but it also gave me a ton of hope. And what was amazing is how many Americans came out of the woodwork on social media going, keep it up. We hate the guy. We can't stand it. But to that point, one of the things that I want to talk about today too is outside of support for Canada, you got 230, 300 million people who didn't vote for Donald Trump. I'm amazed to see the lack of conviction socially, publicly by a lot of those people as well. Canada sticks up for ourselves, especially on the world stage. And I'm excited
good
for the
to
game
see.
Thursday at 8 o'clock. Thursday,
Yeah,
at 8
Thursday
o'clock.
at 8 o'clock.
I know you're not a sports guy, but you're watching it with
Oh,
me.
I have to watch this game. There is also a seismic shift because of Donald Trump happening politically in Canada. We had previously seen Pierre Poilievre's a very strong conservative party showing as the potential frontrunner for the next elections. Justin Trudeau was eliminated from the running because of the perceptions around Trudeau's leadership. And suddenly things have turned around. And Pierre Poilievre is no longer the only frontrunner. There's a presumed possible tie now if Mark Carney becomes the new Liberal Party leader. According to Angus Reid, the polling looks like this: 40% to Poilievre, to the Liberals at 37%. And if you look at the trajectory and the momentum there, boy, oh boy, is Carney got a story to tell here. If he wins the leadership race, he looks like he'll overtake Poilievre in the next few weeks.
In a matter of days.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, this poll this is today, February 25th. Angus Reid put this out. I know you cover American politics and Elon Musk. In Canada, we've got Maple MAGA. That is Pierre Poilievre. He is a Carbon Dollar Store, Temu, Wish.com copy of Donald Trump. And we've been suffering through the same populist movement, the same negative gaslighting, the same disinformation, which contributed heavily to Justin Trudeau backing out of the prime minister's office and conducting a leadership bid. And as you can point out, the actual apex of his disapproval is 16%. That was down December 24th. And that was right when the finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, basically quit. And she was the deputy prime minister. She's like, I got to get out. This guy's crazy. So there's fatigue on behalf of his MPs. There was fatigue on behalf of the country. There was incredible gaslighting by Pierre Poilievre, who was at one point favored to get 250 seats within a matter of 2 months. A couple things happened. One, Justin Trudeau decided to step down because he didn't have the confidence in his caucus anymore. Two, the United States elected Donald Trump as president, and he went to work. Now, Canadians are the people who ordered the fish, got the beef, and we ate it anyway. But the interesting thing here is that Canadians are also very well educated, and we've got great bullshit sniffers. We put up with the bullshit for a long period of time, and people were enamored with the idea that Pierre Poilievre might be able to make Canada great again for some reason. And people who just hated Justin Trudeau went over to the conservative side of the ledger. And up until 2 months ago, almost to the day, they had a 45-16 lead in the polls. 45 of people in Canada were going to vote for Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives. 16% were going to vote Liberal. Why it's important is because that was largely done on the populist movement that we've seen, MAGA. We call it Conservative Party Maple MAGA here in Canada. They decided to cut bait with their leader, Justin Trudeau. They go up immeasurably, probably around 15 points. And then something fascinating happened. Donald Trump started to do what Donald Trump does, blaming DEI for things, threatening to invade Canada, threatening to forcibly take over Canada through economic force and power. Then he got to work on Ukraine. Then he got to work with Putin. And then he decided that he was the king. Now, Pierre Poilievre and Donald Trump both share that vibe. They share that personality trait. And Canadians saw that. And they saw a guy named Mark Carney, who's the former governor of the Bank of Canada, governor of the Bank of England, hustled Ireland through what could have been bankruptcy just because he was having fun with math one day and decided to help out Ireland. He's that smart. He's that qualified. He's that good. And Canada looked at him. Everybody sat up and looked at him and went like this. Oh, my God, we don't have to vote for Pierre Poilievre or Justin Trudeau. Yeah. And then they see a steady hand at the wheel, and every single poll from Leger, Ecos, Nanos, and of course, Angus Reid, who's widely considered very friendly to conservative interests, have Justin Trudeau's old party, Mark Carney's probably new party because he's going to run away with it, not just beating Pierre Poilievre, but cratering the biggest political lead in the history of Canadian politics in a way that every pollster, every pundit, every researcher has never seen before. So part of it is the hatred for Justin Trudeau and fatigue, but most of it is watching an authoritarian rise to power in the United States and watching what he's doing to so many people in that country.
And you've left off one thing from that list of things that have happened that maybe have shifted the whole vibe here. Is you see on that chart, I've actually marked where Narativ Canada first had his premiere broadcast when you and I first went on the air.
That's right. Yeah.
It was just before his peak. And I'm not saying we did it, but we did expose what Poilievre was all about. And I remember a few weeks ago when we was hanging out with Colga and you were saying there's absolutely no way still that the Conservatives could end up being defeated. And here they are facing what could be potential defeat. And they're still not there yet, but they could in fact be defeated by Carney. The shift of tide has been remarkable. Like it's happened practically overnight in political terms.
I would put us right at the top of the list as to reasons why the turnaround happened, to be honest with you, Jeff.
I got to be honest. Of the list. Did you? The loudest voice on Twitter.
I think there's a bunch of factors. I think those are the two main ones. Watching Trump do what Trump does and seeing that as maybe a blueprint for what could happen to Canadians. But the sense of national pride that we have and the united front that Canadians showed when the tariff announcement happened shook me. It shook me because I started getting DMs from people who called me a Zionist, a cuck, a radical left loon, who were like, oh, okay, we finally see what you were talking about. And then I started getting texts from people that were on the extreme left saying the same thing. Oh, we finally see what you were talking about. And the united front that we saw when it came to the Buy Canadian movement, which is still in full swing, the united front that we saw when we saw tens of thousands of Canadians cancel their vacations to the United States to show their displeasure with the disrespect that our sovereignty was shown by Americans, by Donald Trump, by this terrorist administration. Let's just call it what it is, okay? It's not a presidential administration. These are bureaucrats and felons and rapists and terrorists who've managed to co-opt the United States of America through a series of channels. And Canadians saw that and said, okay, we're done with the ideology. We're going to stand shoulder to shoulder and come up with the very best option for our neighbors. Some might vote for Justin Trudeau. Some might be NDP. Some might be Green Party. But we're going to fight for their jobs. We're going to fight for their income. We're going to stand next to each other and do what we can for each other. And we're going to buy Canadian. We're going to support this country. We're going to support the people that run this country. And we're going to pick a leader that can usher us through this. So all of those things that have come together, we can thank Trump for them. You don't have to thank Trump for them. But if Donald Trump wasn't part of this equation, if we didn't see this asshole running amok geopolitically, I would have been sure that Pierre Poilievre was going to win the next election. And I was sick about it.
Yeah.
There was no way anybody could come back from a 30-point deficit with 12 months left before an election's ever. There was no way in my mind. And you ask any researcher or pollster, is that a possibility? They would have said no as well.
Every single one I spoke to back then said absolutely no ways. But here we are in this very new reality. Canada really into this incredible position now. It's a real position of strength. There's something else that's happening. Americans are also leaving the United States and moving to Canada. I was out on the weekend at a nightclub. Can you believe I still do that every once in a while?
Do you still club, Zev?
I don't mind going and
Dance?
dancing a
You
little
like to
bit.
rave? Do you,
Was
do you
it-
take some
it-
ecstasy,
it
a
was
couple
at-
shrooms before you go?
What did I do?
Glow
No,
sticks?
I don't do the glow sticks, but it was at History Nightclub, which is a very impressive venue. If anyone's not been there, have you been there?
No, I
Yeah.
don't club.
It's a very nice place. And I didn't bring my glow sticks. There, but I did meet a few people. I was like, talking to this one guy, and he's a very charming guy. And he's like, oh, I'm American, but I live here. Immigrated here. I'm waiting for my permanent residency here from America. Ivy educated, smart, white guy from Orange County, like potentially could be at any job at any top firm in the United States right now, and is choosing to immigrate to Canada because it's just a nicer place to live. And I was like, I've not met too many people like that. So I did some research because I was like, what's going on? Is this brain drain really happening? Firstly, there has been a really big climb in the number of web searches from the United States. This is the Canadian website that advertises refugee and citizenship rights. And just after Trump was elected, the number of people who checked out that website went up from 30,000 to 295,000. That's a 700% plus increase. It happened after Bush was elected, and it happened after the first Trump's victory. But something very different is happening now, according to people in the know. They're saying that this time it's not just like a gut reaction thing like it was in 2016 and in 2004, but this is actually a very serious trend happening of real inquiries into immigrating from the United States to Canada. And we're seeing it in the actual numbers, and I'll pull them up here for you. The baseline is about 7,700 people apply for permanent residency and get permanent residency in Canada from the United States.
Yeah.
An average year. We are now seeing in this post-Trump era that 13,500 people are likely to get permanent residency compared to the baseline, which is 7,700. That is way more than the first Trump administration and significantly more than the Bush 2004.
Stunning.
32% of those people